recording.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jack, if you wanna state your name, where you're
Okay.
from, and
Okay, my name is Jack Moldoff, and where I'm from now is Liberty Mark 70, Cherryville, and that's where I'm at.
so at the beginning of the war, can you tell us a little bit about your life leading up to World War II?
Yeah, my father had bought a tractor and trailer, semi-tractor and trailer, and we were three brothers, so we drove the tractor trailer. He leased it to the 151 line, which sort of we got 58% of the receipts. That was the total income for the family. And at that time, we were a family of we're four brothers and one sister. My father was determined to have a girl, and I was 14 years old when my sister Shirley came along.
Were you the oldest?
No, I'm the third one, third one down the line. An older brother that was about 5 years older. My other brother was 18 months older, and and then my youngest brother was 7 years younger than I am. Was, was, and of course Shirley, my sister, like I said, she was 14 years younger.
14 years younger. So where were you brought up?
That's a good question because my father, he originally he was a carpenter, but in the those days it was the Depression, and hardly anybody was building houses because you know nobody was buying; they were staying put. And he also owned, well, when I was 3 years old, we had a chicken farm near Vineland. The place was Norma. And then we moved from there, we moved to Kane Avenue in Camden. Of course, you know where that is. And my mother opened a hosiery store. My father, he got a job. He was also a suitcase maker. He used to make suitcases. But he got a poisoned finger from putting it in the glue, and he couldn't do that anymore. So he was more or less retired. Getting back to the trailer business, uh, my brother and we were sole drivers, and I was home maybe on Sunday if I was lucky, because we traveled. Our route was from Philadelphia, well, from Jersey City, Philadelphia, Norfolk, Virginia, Washington, Baltimore, back to Philadelphia. That was our route, and we did that for about 5 years up until the time I got into the service. Of course, my brother, he went in before, about a year before, which left me lone driver. So because the truck was not paid off yet, and my father couldn't work, and my mother, uh, so, let's see, where was I?
This is before the war.
Yeah, all right. Well,
So you had two
the
brothers that
war,
went in?
there were two brothers. He was 18 months older than me, and we both took turns driving. But when he went into service, I was the only one to drive until it took about a year until the truck was paid off. Father sold the truck and whatever, and I went into service.
So did you enlist or were you drafted?
Well, because I was a sole provider, I was drafted, and I got a deferment because of that, And as soon as the truck was paid off, I went in.
So what year was that you went in?
1942.
Oh, so you went in pretty early.
Yeah.
And how about your brother? Did he also go into the army?
Yeah, he went to England. He, about 41 or whatever. That's right. Well, the war started, it was December 7th, 1941,
41.
right?
Right.
So, uh,
So when you went in, you then went to basic training, I'm assuming.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
where
Yeah,
was
that
that?
was, we got on a troop train from Fort Dix, and we told her we were going to uh, Fort McClellan, Alabama, and it was raining like crazy, and this was November 15th, cold, raining, and I thought, boy, we're going south, it's going to be warm there. Well, anyhow, when we got off of the troop train, we all lined up, and most of us, in fact, all of us were from New York and New Jersey. And being Alabama, uh, the weather was worse when we got there than it was
It's cold
in
out.
Jersey. So a sergeant came out and said, first greeting we got was, "Okay, you Yankees, line up." That's when I knew it wasn't going to be a picnic like And well, went to our barracks, which was I'd say, well, we had 30 cots and mattresses and a wood burning stove on each end. That was for heat. And well, we uh, got got set up there, and a lot of information, whatever we had to know, and shots, whatever. And well, 5 o'clock in the morning, no, 5:30, Sergeant came through and said, "Full out for calisthenics in 30 minutes." That was not, what I was used to. Although driving a truck, I was used to getting up different hours, so I didn't mind it so much. And 9 o'clock was lights out, and that's
So were you taught a specialty down in
no basic training. They just you had rifle practice, and we had to march. A squad was there's 10 people to a squad, and 4 squads to a platoon, and 4 platoons to a company. So I was part of the 517th company, which was a trucking company, more or less. Because the Army doesn't exist without supplies.
Sure.
So even though driving a truck doesn't seem like much, but it's a very important part of the war. And if I will go over our mission, actually, well, I'm skipping a lot from basic training. Then we went to Camp Van Dorn, Mississippi. And we bivouacked at the shores of Lake Pontchartrain. And there's where we got assigned to what we were going to do. Well, that was pretty good because we, in the morning, they packed our lunch. I was assigned to the truck company. There were some people who went to the infantry and whatever, different one. Well, they would start marching down the road at, say, 6 o'clock in the morning, and they packed our lunch, and we drove, practiced driving in convoy. Uh, so we'd go to certain towns in Mississippi, stop, have our lunch, and then turn around and come back over. So we did that for 6 weeks, and then we went to, I guess, yeah, went back to Camp Dix, Fort Dix, and that's where where I actually started, and, you know, uh,
So you were assigned to go overseas when you were at Dix?
yeah, yeah, we already, because we spent 6 weeks in Alabama, 6 weeks in Mississippi, and when we got to Fort Dix, we were told to, we carried everything in a duffel bag, all our belongings. A duffel bag is, you know, and of course your rifle, which at that time they issued Springfield '03 rifles, bolt action, that they used in the First World
Yeah,
War.
World War I, yeah.
So we weren't really prepared. I'll tell you, we were not prepared for it. So,
So where did you then ship out to?
all right, we got, well, I'll tell you, we went to Jersey City, got on a ferry boat, from a ferry boat, and this is with all our belongings. I mean, your overcoat, your backpack, and we boarded the Mauritania. Supposed to be, that was a luxury ship that was converted to a troop ship.
That was that was a sister ship to the Lusitania.
Yeah, well, and it was supposed to be one of the fastest ships, anyhow, and I was assigned to D8. Now, D8 is midship waterline, which is not the best place to be, you know, when there are U-boats. The Germans call them U-boats, which is underwater boats. We
Right.
call them submarines. They were pretty active, and they didn't tell us where we were going, but we went, after we got on the Mauritania, we went to, first stop was Rio de Janeiro, where we took on supplies, and incidentally, we passed the exact spot where the Graf Spee, which was a German pocket, I don't know why you call it pocket, battleship that they claimed was unsinkable. Well, a few weeks before we passed this place, I think it was off the coast of Montevideo.
Mm-hmm.
Montevideo.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
Sure.
Oh, okay. And our Navy did sink the ship. So you know that.
So you saw it?
Well, it was sunk.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see them sink it, but it was down at the bottom.
Right.
So we stopped at Rio de Janeiro and took on supplies. Now, after we got the supplies, Rio de Janeiro, we didn't get off the ship. We just, you know, they loaded up, and we started off across the South Atlantic. Of course, we crossed the equator. So the ship had to zigzag every 7 minutes, crossing the South Atlantic. We were traveling alone, no escort, no nothing. They had one, I guess you call it cannon or whatever, for sub, what do they call those things? That they,
What,
empty
destroyers?
sub, where they shot, it would explode, you know, those,
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, whatever it is. Anyhow,
Depth charges.
yeah. So it took us about, I'd say, 2 weeks crossing, because
Wow.
every 7 minutes you had to zigzag
Right.
across the South Atlantic, and we knew that there were a lot of U-boats around. But, nothing ever happened. Of course, a couple of times they shot off this, uh, well, they shot it off, and they said, let's practice, but we didn't know it might have been the real thing. And we went into we landed at Cape Town, South Africa. Cape Town, South Africa, we got off and we did some drilling. Yeah, that was, months around whatever. And a couple of days we were there, and we started to leave, start board ship. We got back on ship, and instead of going, they went out, and about a half an hour they came back again. And we found out that there were submarines out there. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, which was, I think it was around 2, it was like, we started out again, and instead of going north up the Indian Ocean, they went south towards the Antarctic. For 2 days, they steamed south, and we weren't permitted on deck, but we sneaked up, and boy, it was cold, because we were getting close to the Antarctic Circle.
I'll bet.
So after, I guess it was 3 or 4 days or whatever it was, they turned around and headed up the Indian Ocean, and we passed Bombay, where we got off in Bombay to a rest camp, which they called a rest camp. Well, everybody, I say 3/4 of us got sick with the rest camp. We stayed there 2 weeks. I mean, everybody had dysentery and diarrhea. I don't know, it was horrible. And we were glad to get back on the ship. In fact, we got on a smaller ship there, yes, because we had to go from Bombay, we had to go up to Persian Gulf. Up to Persian Gulf to Quartermaster. Quartermaster was the POE, or port of entry. That's where all supplies came in.
And this is in what country?
This is Iran.
This is Iran.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Iran. That time they were friendly. That's when the Shah Pahlavi was the king. And well, we got up on deck. Weather was like over 100 degrees. We had to have our overcoats and a full field pack and a duffel bag. We were standing on a steel deck. When we finally got off, and it was desert, all sand, hot. So then we each had a shelter half. Shelter half is a part of a pup tent. You know what a pup tent is?
Mm-hmm.
And two people shared that. They had the 4-foot poles, and so we set up a pup tent, and that's where we slept for first night. Well, I remember during the night, the sandstorm came up, and when we looked out, it was the pup tent was like half full of sand, right. That we didn't stay there too long, and next camp was Antimesh. Well, there were a motor pool, and we were assigned trucks, and
Do you remember what kind of truck?
yeah, there were 6x6 Studebakers and semi-trailers and Desert Diesels. The Desert Diesel is, well, it had single wheels, but very large, so that you could, I happened to get a diesel. So then we went up to Andamesh, which is the next camp. Oh, incidentally, the mission or the purpose was to carry supplies to Tehran, which was 750 miles from Quartermaster. The Russian soldiers came down from Stalingrad because that's where they were fighting the Germans at that time. And we supplied them to the back door. The Russian soldiers came down, and we weren't permitted to go further than Tehran, which the Russians took the trucks from there right into Stalingrad.
They took the trucks.
They took the trucks into Stalingrad, and then they drove the empty ones back. We had set up, well, we had camps, see, there was 5 of them. Karamashore, Andamesh, Karamabad, Awaz, and Kazvin.
That's interesting. I was not aware that we were supplying the Russians from
Oh,
the south.
yeah, yeah, for a year and a half. I stayed there for a year and a half. And quite a few, well, a year and a half, quite a few incidents happened.
So how long a trip was that from the coast
Well,
to Tehran?
Well, 750 miles, but we just, you know, we got off at the first camp, and then we would take the empty truck back, and then the other one
So
would
was
take
it,
it.
did you do it in a
It was
day,
it was
2
like
days?
a relay. We were about 150 miles apart, and you know, that was, yeah.
Oh, you only, okay, so you drove a little ways.
It was
and
like a
then-
relay, yeah.
Gotcha.
We had these 5 camps, so we drove the load of trucks, and then we would drive the empty trucks back. They would load them, and so that's what we did for a year and a half. And in the meantime, there was a convoy they wanted. There was the 8th Air Force had a contingent in Tabriz. Now, Tabriz is about 25 miles off of the from Russia, 25 miles. So we couldn't go into Russia. They brought them there, and we took them from there. And I'm taking on a long trip. We took them from there. We were supposed to go to Cairo. From Tabriz, we crossed Baghdad, Euphrates River, the Tigris River, and then we proceeded to Transjordan, across the Allenby Bridge, into, which at that time was Palestine. Of course, it's Israel now. And first stop was at a monastery that was, and the priest order came out, and they said that this was the spot where Jesus crossed the Galilee River up to the mountains. It was we saw the mountains, so that's one of the stops. And then we proceeded to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, we went we crossed the Suez Canal, and I drove. Well, this took weeks. I mean, this, you know, it took different stops, and we stopped overnight some places. Drove along. Of course, the Suez Canal did not impress me at all. It wasn't. It was a bridge, and then we drove along the Nile River. We went through one city. It was, forgot the name of it momentarily, which was pretty nice, and we went to Cairo.
So was it, so you had, the trucks were loaded at this point?
Well, we had these troops on.
Oh, you were carrying troops?
Yeah, there was a contingent of the 8th Air Force or whatever. They were doing something in Russia, and they brought them back there. So.
And did you know when this, was this in 43?
1943, 44, yeah. And, well, we dropped them off in Cairo, and then we went back to Tel Aviv and stayed there for about 2 weeks. So that was pretty nice. Of course, it wasn't then what it is now, but it was civilized. And after a couple of weeks, we started back, And no, I'm going through it just like,
Back to Iran.
huh?
Now you're going
We
back to
are
Iran.
going back to Iran, and we went, drove, I remember now, we went up alongside of the canal up to Port Said, S-A-I-D, whatever it was, Said.
Right.
And
This is back in Egypt.
yeah, and well, one incident, I fell back a little bit, lost a convoy, and a English lorry, that's what they call a lorry, the English truck, uh, was blocking the way because it was narrow, and we had no horn on these diesels which I was driving. So what I did was got up close to the bumper and bumped this lorry. Well, they moved over. When I passed, I looked to the side of it. It was a whack, an English whack was driving. She was a little startled, but that's where it was. So we got to Port Said and loaded oranges. Because it was, our convoy was about, I guess, 10 or 12 trucks. It wasn't that many. And then we came back, same way, and then we wound up in Tel Aviv, and from there, we just retraced the steps. We got back to Iran and resumed our old, just
The old route up to Tehran.
Uh, yeah, well, I was in Andamesh. That so happens in Andamesh they had a swimming pool. I have pictures at home of it, and that wasn't bad. It was a pretty big swimming pool there. So, and I was stationed for a while in Andamesh. Well, we had the civilians, drivers, the Iranians. Some of them were Arabs, some were Iranians, and the convoys. We had 5 civilians and 1 GI. 5 civilians, 1 GI, and we're told that if anything happens, along the road, we have to stop and stay with whatever, with that truck. Well, I remember one time I had to stop because one of the, well, I won't say it, but the term was scoops. It wasn't, today you can't say that. One of the civilian drivers, it made the bend and couldn't negotiate, turned the truck over. They're carrying 50-pound bags of flour. And some of them split, on the road or whatever. And the captain said, was behind, and he says, stay with that road there and we'll send the truck back. Well, that was daytime, which I got, all I had was a carbine and a holster. So I got out and I'm standing guard over this load of flour. Well, and there was a big hill alongside, and it started to get dark. This truck wasn't coming back that quick. And I saw some heads pop up. Next thing I know, there was a village, a whole village came down, and it was just getting dark. I came down and I was able to, speak to them somewhat and told them they can have the broken bags. Well, they had baskets and they're filling up with when they got through with the ones that were broken, they started breaking the other ones.
More, sure.
So, and then it was getting dark, and I figured that some of them had rifles. They were, so I got back in the truck and just watched them. And they emptied every single bag. Well, eventually, the truck did come back from there. He sent it back and said, where's the flour? I said, they all broke. And I left. As soon as this truck came back, they were in charge. I said, there it is. You can go.
And you left.
I mean, it was, I got back in the truck, went back to camp, and like nothing ever happened. I never heard a word about the incident. And another incident was, we were supposed to have the civilian drivers drive back. And we switched driver. We had them sit and we drove. And they caught on to it. So a sergeant came out, said, you have to, let them drive. And we were supposed to sit alongside. Well, the, uh, uh, the captain came out and he pointed to one and said, you get in that truck and the civilian has to drive. And that was a command. If you disobey an officer's command, you would be court-martialed. So I got in and let the civilian drive, and he was driving pretty good through the mountains, and then we got down into the desert, and I think I dozed off. Well, the civilian driver dozed off also, I imagine, because I woke up, I could remember this like it was yesterday, and I was looking up at the sky, it was blue, and my carbine was alongside of me, my feet were up on the dashboard, well not dashboard, the running board of the truck, whatever. And I'm looking up and there's blood coming down, my face. See, these Studebakers, they had, for the windshield wipers, they have these stems, which you turn it on and off. Well, they stopped. Of course, the medic stopped and fixed me up, and we looked at the tracks. And what happened? He went off into the sand, and he turned the wheel sharply to the right to get back on, and the truck rolls over. So that's what happened. And I was looking out of the corner of my eye when I was laying there, and this civilian driver, he's limping across the sand there, but he's gone.
So he got out.
He left. He was limping. I know he was limping. I could see that because the Russians, they also came down and drove some convoys too. If they caught anybody stealing anything, they would shoot them. In fact, I saw one truck where they had Russians, where they had a civilian here, a civilian on there, bleeding. They tied him there and driving through towns to show people what happened if you steal. So I guess this guy thought that I was going to, even though it was only going to happen to him, I was, rude.
So were you okay?
The what?
Were you okay?
Yeah, it made like a little round hole there where the stem was, And when I got back to camp, well, the word got out, about what happened and everything. So they sent me to Kazvin, which is the last stop before Tehran. And Kazvin was the place where we had the civilian drivers, and we were supposed to teach them. So I was sent there with some other, some of my buddies went too. And we, we taught them how to shift gears, clutch, gears, and they rode around a circle. And I remember I was sitting in the middle of the circle, and they supplied us with grapes and things like that. We were sitting there eating grapes and watching them drive. And that's where I learned 3 words in Farsi. That's what they spoke. It was Yavash, which means slow. Ais means stop. And Yella is fast. So that's the three words we know. You either stop, go faster, or slow down. And we that's I spent some time there, and then I went to after being there a year and a half. The motor pool at this camp, I think it was Awas, yeah, Awas. Uh, they had trucks that were supposed to be loaded, and we were told that we were going to China. Now, we were going to cross Afghanistan, and they said there are no hospitals along the way. Anything happens, and it said it's a very dangerous country, and a lot of bandits and whatever. So I didn't sleep too well that night anyhow, but thinking about it, or in the morning we went to the motor pool. Instead of going across what they said at Afghanistan, we loaded onto trucks and we went down to Quartermaster, back to where we started from. Then Quartermaster, then we went down to Bombay then. In Bombay, after we stayed there another couple of weeks, which was horrible. From Bombay, we got on a train.
You drove to Bombay, or you?
No.
You took a boat?
Yeah, got on board ship
Okay.
from Rameshwar and went back down the Persian Gulf to Bombay, and we got on a train, troop train. Well, there were civilians there too. They were hanging on the side, on the top of her, and they took us from Bombay to Calcutta. Now, Calcutta is on the Bay of Bengal, and there's the Indian Ocean. So,
Right.
so
Go to the
we
West
crossed,
Coast.
we crossed the whole,
East Coast.
we're all across there. And, let's see, yeah. Well, Calcutta, from Calcutta, we stayed there a couple of weeks. After that, we they drove us to a place called Lido, L-E-D-O, now I remember the names. And we were assigned trucks as a motor pool.
Still in India?
This isn't, yeah. And it bordered Burma, And so that's where we started our trip across the Himalaya mountains. And
Do you remember what your freight was? What was in the trucks?
yeah, I happen to have sauerkraut.
Really?
That's true. So I ate some sauerkraut on the way. And I don't know what the other trucks had. Anyhow, we started before that, we had machine gun practice. 50 caliber machine gun tracers. And we're wondering, why do we need, machine gun practice? I mean, we're not the infantry, but anyhow, I remember and they had some mounted on the cabs of the trucks because we were going to cross the Stillwell Highway from Lido, Burma, across the Himalaya Mountains, which was the hump.
Right.
The hump. I remember the highest point where I looked down, you could see the clouds below. But a lot of it was jungle. And one day, I remember we traveled 27 miles in one day. It took us 8 hours because we had to stop, the radiators would overheat, whatever, because it was hot. And it took us 8 hours to travel 27 miles. And the Lido Road was 30 miles from the Burma Road, where the Japanese were pretty well entrenched. Now, in between the Burma Road and the Stillwell Road was the Mars Task Force, and the British were holding, you know, at the only shield we had between that 30-mile stretch. And so I imagine there were a lot of infiltrators, and I remember when they built the Stillwell Highway, the bulldozers pushed these tanks, the Japanese tanks. There were one-man tanks. I remember that. They were no bigger than an automobile, and they had one-man tanks. All it did is push them off the road, and that was part of the scenery.
Mm.
So, well, we.
Do you remember where you were where in China you were going?
Well, Kunming in China. Now, this must have taken several weeks, although I think it was like 1,700 miles or something across the Burma.
And all you're carrying is sauerkraut.
Well, I carried sauerkraut. But, some of the southern boys, there were some chickens along the road. I remember they caught one chicken, and they, butchered or whatever, and they had a can with fire, and they had roast chicken that night. So, I mean, that's some of the things that happen along the road. Well, going down, of course, you go up, you have to come down. Coming down, your brakes, you had to put it in a low gear, and the brakes, if they if they don't hold, all you do is get up against the truck in front of you. That's it. And that's what we did.